So I guess I was sort of inspired of sorts by John Wolf's 12-hour album CD showing off collection. I was like, what if I made a video yapping about all of my CDs? So I've decided to do that because I've been collecting CDs for exactly a year now, with the first one ever bought, Nirvana's Nevermind, which you will see much later in this video. So yeah, check out my CDs. Okay, so starting out with the A's, we've got Aerosmith with their 1989 Pump. They were a blues hard rock band from the early 70s, and a lot of their 70s stuff has got a lot of heavy blues feel to it, but they kind of lost a bit of popularity, and then in the mid-80s they had a hip-hop remix of one of their older songs get really famous, and in the 80s they made some glam stuff, and this is one of their glam albums. I wasn't a huge fan of the other one, Permanent Vacation, which has got like a dude looks like a lady. I like that song. It's got some other good songs in it, but I definitely prefer their blues stuff. But this one I would definitely rank amongst one of their best, some of their best work. It's very shiny. It's got some. There's all the members. It's got some. There are still some pretty good songs on here. The opener, Young Lust, is a pretty good one. Love in an Elevator is a good one. Monkey on My Back. Janie's Got a Gun. And there's not much. I can't really remember what most of them are, but yeah, this was definitely a pretty solid album, and definitely one of my favorite bands. Just bought that one because it was really cheap. Next up, Alice in Chains, which there are 2 albums. We've got so they were a grunge band from the early 90s, which were popularized around stuff like Nirvana and all them. They had a 1990 debut, Facelift, which has probably got their biggest song on it, Man in the Box, but this was their most well-known album, probably, Dirt, which has got a lot of their really big songs in it. It's definitely my favourite album of theirs. Dem Bones is a really good opener. Damn That River, Sick Man, Rooster is one of my favourites. Wood is an incredible closer, and there's the singer Lane Staley. He passed away in 2002, I believe. And they replaced this singer. He replaced him with someone else I don't know the name of. But they definitely never really got as good as they were when they were with Lane. And Jerry Cantrell is he's the guitarist, and he's definitely one of the best guitarists ever. You'll probably hear me say that a lot in this video though. And then Jar of Flies, which this one might actually be my favourite from theirs. This is an EP. Just front to back, it's incredible. It's a 2 CD one. It's also got another EP. They've got Sap, which I've never listened to, and I don't really plan on it. But yeah, Jar of Flies has got some of my favourites from them. I'll have to look at the track list. Let's see. Rotten Apple, Nutshell, that was probably one of my favourites. I Stay Away, No Excuses, yeah, they're all just absolutely incredible, and for an EP which they essentially didn't even intend on releasing, is just absolutely incredible. Alright, with the B's, we've got the Beatles. These Beatles CDs are incredibly hard to come by. They're not that hard, but they're very expensive. They're all like $30. This one's probably one of my favourite albums from them, Rubber Soul, which was their kind of first foray into the more psychedelic era of their discography. It's kind of a combination of their older stuff and the later stuff, which I think it's like the best of both worlds. Lots of really good ones down here. The opening, Drive My Car, Norwegian Wood, You Won't See Me, In My Life, Michelle. Yeah, lots of really good ones on this one. It's definitely probably the most underrated album. It's probably not my favourite actually. I probably still prefer the White Album and some other ones. I can't remember. Maybe Sgt. Pepper's also the other one I've got. Very bad lighting, but this one I feel is a very, very good album, but very much overrated because, you know, it's like the best album ever made, but I mean, it's pretty good. The title track, and then with a little help from my friends, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, Getting Better. There are definitely lots of good ones, but I feel this kind of era is probably my personal favourite. Next up, Black Sabbath, the original metal band. I've got 3 of their albums. This is a really bizarre, I guess, reissue of the self-titled debut, the first ever metal album essentially ever made. It's missing like 1 or 2 tracks, and it combines a bunch. If you can see that, it's like really weird. But I don't know why it does that, but it's still, obviously the title track of the album is phenomenal, and it's like the greatest metal song ever made. And it's such a good album, but I probably prefer, my favourite's probably like Paranoid or something. Yeah, this one's probably my favourite from them. It's got like all of their big hits: War Pigs, Paranoid, Iron Man, Ferris Wear Boots. Yeah, this one's probably my favourite from them. I also quite like some of that one Dio album, Heaven and Hell, is the one that's really good. The Rat Salad drum track is phenomenal. It's just such a good album. Planet Caravan as well. Volume 4 I actually have only listened to once. It's probably my least favourite of their first 5 albums. I'm yet to own Master of Reality or Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. This one's still got some pretty good songs on it though. Changes, I remember being on this album. I can't remember. I've listened to almost all of these songs only one time. I should definitely try listening to it again, though. Onto the C's, we've got Crowded House, a 80s Australian rock band. This was their self-titled this is a very, very famous band from here. Lots of kind of pop rock, very catchy music, I'd say, and they're definitely one of my favourite bands. This self-titled is probably my favourite from them. I also like their other one, Woodface. Mean to Me is one of my favourites. Don't Dream It's Over is probably like their most well-known song. Something So Strong, Tombstone. It's very much a very incredible debut album. I think it was 1986 or 1987. 1986, yeah. And then they made another album, I think it was like Temple of Low Men or something. And then that one, I don't think that one did as well, but I could be wrong. But then they did this one, which was Woodface, which is their most well-known album, I think. And then they brought the lead singer's brother in, that guy. And I hate it when this happens. I bought this off eBay, and it had like bubble wrap on the thing, and it pushed it down, and now it doesn't hold the disc properly. This one's got like a lot of their big, It's Only Natural, Chocolate Cake, Fall at Your Feet, Weather With You. It's definitely got more of an evolved sound than the first one. I probably would say this is their best album. Very solid. I haven't listened to any of their other stuff though, but I definitely should get around to doing that. D's, we've got Def Leppard with my personal favourite album from them, Hysteria, which is one of my favourite albums as it came broken. This was an album that they made, I think, with the idea of it being every song could be a #1 single, and you can definitely tell it's got like all of their big songs: Women, Rocket, Animal, Love Bites, Pour Some Sugar on Me, Armageddon It, Don't Shoot a Shotgun, the title track. It's such a phenomenal album. I also like their other two big 80s albums, Hit and Run and Pyromania, which I probably will collect. I actually saw these guys live a few months ago with Motley Crue. Absolutely phenomenal show. It's like pretty close to the front. Joe Elliott, I think is the singer's name. Sounds exactly like he does on the album in real life, and it's amazing. Vince Neil, however, here is a big one. Foo Fighters, my favourite band. This is my entire collection. These are one of my big bands that really got me into music. So for those of you who don't know, you probably know Nirvana. The drummer for that band, after they ended, wanted to continue to make music, and he had a bunch of songs written when he was in Nirvana, but he never got them made. So he went into the studio and he made an album which ended up being this album, and it was kind of an experiment, essentially. And it's incredible, especially because everything is just Dave Grohl. And then after this came out, he got a bunch of other people on the other instruments. There's Pat Smears, who I think played with Nirvana, and then Nate Smendel, who I think is that guy, and then he was the drummer, and he left after the second album, and that's Dave. he's a singer and guitarist, and main writer, and he does singing, guitar, bass, and drums on this whole album. There's lots of really good songs on this one. This Is a Call, I'll Stick Around, Big Me, Alone and Easy Target, Weenie Beanie, Floaty, For All the Cows, which is one of my favourites, Watershed, Exhausted. Actually, I saw these guys live in December, probably the best show I've been to. This was their another really big album they did. This one, it had the drummer, I can't remember the whole story, but I think he kept being removed off of songs, and then Dave would keep replacing him, and he just said he left. And then I think Pat Smears wanted to spend time with his family, and he also left after this album. So Dave did most of the work on drums, and then after it came out, they got Taylor Hawkins on drums, and he was with the band until his passing in 2022. This one's got their 3 big hits on it: Monkey Wrench, My Hair, and of course Everlong, which is my favourite song of all time. But lots of other really good deep cuts on this album: My Poor Brain, Hey Johnny Park, Wind Up, See You, Enough Space, New Way Home. If there is any album that you should listen to get into them, this is definitely a really good one. Colour and the Shape, probably my favourite. And then this one, There Is Nothing Left to Lose, their 1999 album. I think... so Pat left, so it was just Dave, Nate, and Taylor on... oh my god, no, it broke. It's breaking! That shouldn't happen. Yeah, it's just the 3 of them, and it's such a tight, compact sound, and it got a lot more, I guess, some heavier stuff in the beginning, and then it kind of slows down near the end. And it's got some of their best work on it. Learn to Fly is the really big one. Breakout. Next Year is one of my favourites. Aurora, MIA. Yeah, definitely one of their best albums. One by One, which I think this is their 2002 album. I think Dave says this is their worst album, because he essentially just made most of it up and didn't really have much passion about it. I actually quite like this one. So there's Dave, there's Nate. No, that's Chris, and then that's Nate, and then that's Taylor. So they became a 4-piece band after this, and they stayed like that until like 2011 or something. And this one's got some good ones on it. All My Life and Times Like These are the big ones, but Low, Disenchanted Lullaby, Tired of You, Lonely As You, Halo, some really, really good ones. Definitely an underrated one. Then they decided to do a double album, which had the side A, all the big rock ones, and side B, all the acoustic stuff. And I actually, fun story about this, I dropped it, and it broke. The discs are fine, but this is just meh. I used to prefer the rock part of the album, but I think more that I've listened to it, I prefer the acoustic side now, which is ironic because I don't usually like that kind of stuff. But I find myself coming back to the acoustic stuff more. Bloody ding! There's the... discs. So there's in the title track is the opening, and it's absolutely incredible opening. No Way Back, Best of You, incredible 3-track run, DOA, super underrated. I was hoping they would play that one live, but they didn't. Free Me, Deepest Blues Are Black, those are the really good ones. But then Disc 2's got some really good ones as well. What If I Do, Another Round, Over and Out, Cold Day in the Sun, and Razor, really good ones. And then 2007 brought Echo, Silence, Patience and Grace, which is also side 1 being rock, side 2 acoustic, except this one doesn't make it a double album, it's just a regular album. It feels a lot more compact than In Your Honor, and I think they did it a lot better on this one. There's Taylor, Dave, Nate, Chris and Nate. I keep getting them mixed up all the time. I'm so sorry. There's The Pretender, Let It Die, Long Road to Ruin, Stranger Things That Happen, Cheer Up Boys, Home. This one's a good one, but I don't revisit this one very much. Wasting Light, which is probably their magnum opus in my opinion. This one was filmed entirely in Dave's garage, I think. And I think they got the same producers, the guy that did Nevermind, Butch Vig, I think is his name, yeah. And this, I actually purchased this CD as a regular version, but the seller had this limited edition version. He accidentally sent this version off. It's actually got this cool little analog tape, which was filmed in Dave's garage. So, yeah, this is actually worth a lot more than I paid for, to put it lightly. Bridge Burning, Rope, Landria, These Days is one of my favourites. Walk. This is probably their last really good album in my opinion, as you can tell because I don't own any of their other ones. But yeah, really good. One of my favourite bands. I think that's going to be the band I ended up talking about the longest. Okay, from the G's we've got Green Day. I've only got 2 albums, so the only 2 I've listened to. They're the 2 most popular ones that they made. This is their 1994 breakthrough album, Dookie. This is probably my favourite of the 2. It's got very, I guess, like, cheap sound to it, but it works in its favour. Obviously, Basket Case is the song that everybody knows from this album, but there's also Longview, Welcome to Paradise, Burnout, When I Come Around. Those are all really good ones. Lots of classic Green Day sound on this one. Yeah. And then this is their most popular album, I'd probably say, American Idiot. I think this is some, like, I don't know, foreign version of it or I don't know, something, because this is not what it should look like. The disc is, I believe this is just the actual disc, but this is not like official. I don't know, I think it's really weird. And then Guns N' Roses are the only other G's I've got. This is 1987? I don't know, yeah, 1987. Debut Appetite for Destruction. One of the greatest rock albums ever made. So many classic songs on here. Welcome to the Jungle, one of their biggest songs. Night Train, Mr. Brownstone, Paradise City, My Michelle, Sweet Child of the Mind, Rocket Queen. I mean, if you haven't listened to this album, highly recommend it. Definitely a really good album to get you into this sort of music, even if you haven't listened to many classic rock albums, is definitely a good starter. And I've also got Use Your Illusion 1, which is the first half of a double album, which was released as 2 separate albums on the same day. I haven't listened to them in a while. I can't really remember some of the songs. I remember liking Right Next Door to Hell. Live and Let Die is a good cover. Don't Cry is good. November Rain is probably my favourite song from them. Coma is pretty good as well. And Use Illusion 2 is they kind of blend together for me. I should probably give them another listen. Civil War's good. Knocking on Heaven's Door is good. The Don't Cry alternate lyrics. I can't remember anything else really from this album. It's not a detriment to the album's quality, it's just I have a terrible memory when it comes to music. Here's a big one. Iron Maiden. Now, I bought this in a box set because it was cheaper than to buy all the ones I actually wanted separately. So, the ones I actually wanted, starting off with the self-titled, from 1980, very good self-titled album, classic metal. I don't know why they use this crappy alternate cover. This is the actual cover. So many classic songs on here. Prowler's a great opener. Remember Tomorrow, Running Free, Phantom of the Opera is really good. Transylvania is a good instrumental. Charlotte the Harlot, the title track. Probably seeing these little guys live later this year. Then there's also Killers, which was their 1981 follow-up, and was the final album to include original singer Paul Di'Anno. Definitely not as good as the self-titled. It has a good artwork. Definitely not as good as the self-titled, but there's definitely lots of strong moments on here. Wrathchild is a great opener. It's like an instrumental opener, then it leads into Wrathchild. Murders in the Rue Morgue, Genghis Khan, which, if you haven't listened to that song, it sounds suspiciously like Last Resort by Papa Roach. It's like the exact same riff, except this came out like 20 years earlier. The title track's good, lots of other good ones. Just kind of more of the first album, but just done slightly worse. And then because the singer didn't really match what they wanted to do, they got Bruce Dickinson. And as much as I like Paul Di'Anno, Bruce Dickinson is obviously perfectly fits Iron Maiden's, what they're going for, their style and everything. Absolutely incredible singer, one of the greatest of all time. And this first album is absolutely classic. It's got all their big hits on it, essentially. Obviously, Number of the Beast, the title track, amazing, classic. Run to the Hills, another one, and Hallowed Be Thy Name, which is probably the best song. But there's also a lot of pretty good deeper cuts on here, like 22 Acacia Avenue, The Prisoner, Gangland, Invaders. Heavy stuff on this album, definitely one of their best. Peace of Mind, which was their second album, which isn't as, I guess, well liked. It's kind of stuck in the middle between Number of the Beast and Power Slave, which are their two most popular albums. But I still really, really enjoyed this one. Obviously, the big song of this one was The Trooper, which is probably their most well-known song. It's classic. Where Eagles Dare, I think they got a new drummer on this album. It changed one member from their lineup on each album, and this one was the drummer. And their intro on the drums, Where Eagles Dare, is phenomenal and perfectly shows off his talent. Kind of like the same vein as the Painkiller intro, where they had a new drummer for that with Judas Priest. Die With Your Boots On's fun. Quest for Fire, Sun and Steel, Flight of Icarus, really good stuff on this album. Power Slave, which is my favourite Iron Maiden album. Aces High, fantastic opener. 2 Minutes to Midnight, amazing song, really catchy riffs. Flash of the Blade, Lost for Words is a great instrumental. The Duelists, Back in the Village, the title track, and obviously the amazing 15-minute closer, Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner. I mean, this whole album just is so fun and re-listenable. Probably top 20 albums of all time for me, maybe even top 10. My most listened to album, highly recommend it. Now this is one that actually came with, this is one I wasn't really wanting. I don't really listen to live albums. Live After Death, maybe I'll listen to it one day, but I haven't. It's just all their songs, all their biggest songs live from that point. But apparently it's really good. Somewhere in Time is one that I actually wanted, and this is one of their best albums. They use these like guitar synths, and I think they work really, really well on this album and the following Seventh Son of a Seventh Son. The intro title track with that, the chorus is really, really fun. Wasted Years is obviously the big one from this album and was one of the first songs from them I heard. Heaven Can Wait, Sea of Madness for the Long Distance Runner. Alexander the Great is a great closer. These guys really know how to perfect an album with closers and openers. And its whole 9 yards, this album knocks it out of the park. Seventh Son of a Seventh Son is probably the last album that I really care about. It's really the 80s stuff that I like. These ones are the ones that came with it. Really, really good stuff on this album. It's a concept album, I'm pretty sure. Damn it. Got some good songs on it. It does kind of feel like a weaker Somewhere in Time at some points. Moonchild is an amazing opener. Can I Play With Madness is really good, kind of feels like one of their earliest songs. The title track's amazing. Clairvoyant, Only the Good Die Young. I don't listen to this one as very often, but I definitely have a good time whenever I do. And these four, No Prayer for the Dying, Fear of the Dark, Real Live Dead One, Live at Donington. I haven't listened to the two live ones, so nothing really to say about them. These ones I thought were alright. I listened to them once. Those are all my thoughts on the Iron Maiden albums that I like. And now from Jay's, we've got Judas Priest, one of the founding metal bands. I haven't listened to their older 70s stuff. I've only really listened to everything from 1980 to 1990. Obviously, British Steel is their big breakthrough album. It's got all the bloody big songs on them. Breaking the Law, Metal Gods, Living After Midnight, United, You Don't Have to Be Old to Be Wise. This is a really good album. Really crappy, chapboard cheap, and it's really crap. This is literally the entire booklet. It's just a singular piece of paper folded. But this is definitely one of their best albums. But I do think Painkiller and Screaming for Vengeance are the only two that are better. Screaming for Vengeance is my favourite Judas Priest album, and is probably top 10 albums of all time. This one's just so, just top to bottom, balls to the wall, just like heavy metal. Obviously the Hellion and Electric Eye are the great openers that go together. Riding on the Wind, Take These Chains, Painted Pleasure, the title track, and probably my favourite song from them, You've Got Another Thing Coming, and Devil's Child, which is an incredible closer. I haven't got Painkiller or Defenders of the Faith, which are the two that I really want to get. Yeah, those are my Judas Priest collection, and those are the only J's. Okay, with the K's, we've got Corn. Yeah, mama. So Korn are probably the most influential nu metal band. It essentially created the subgenre. I don't know how some people genuinely think they aren't a nu metal band or even a metal band in general, because they are. I probably prefer their early work with their self-titled from 1994 and their follow-up Life is Peachy, but this is probably their most popular album. It's got probably the most hits on it. Obviously Freak on a Leash is like their biggest song, Got the Life, Children of the Corn, All in the Family, which is a terrible song, it's aged very badly, Seed, Cameltosis, My Gift to You, which there's a hidden track on this album, which is why it's 15 minutes long. And also there's 12 individual 5-second tracks, which add up to like 70 seconds of silence for some reason. So that's why it starts at track 13. Not much else to say about Korn. Obviously they are a really great band and very inspirational. Yeah, that's about all. Obviously this is like one of the most iconic album covers of all time. From the M's, starting off with Megadeth. Now Megadeth are a thrash metal band who were formed in 1983 because the lead singer and guitarist David Mustaine was pretty fairly kicked out of Metallica for some issues with the band, like he had lots of drinking problems, etc. Definitely, the issues he had were definitely there. However, their execution in actually firing him wasn't the best. Maybe don't send out a guy who has no money out onto the street. However, what did come out of it was one of the best successor bands of all time. This is their most popular and easily their best album, Rust in Peace, one of the best metal albums of all time. The songs on here, top to bottom, are absolutely incredible. Obviously Holy Wars, which is their best song, Hangar 18, Take No Prisoners, Five Magics, Poison Was the Cure, Lucretia, Tornado of Souls, Dawn Patrol, Rust in Peace, Polaris. Their best lineup. Obviously Dave Mustaine's been in the band since the beginning and hasn't left at all. And Marty Friedman joined on this album, right there. I can't remember the other two's names. That's Dave Mustaine right there. Just such a great sound on this album. I also really enjoy Peace Sells What He Was Buying, which is their sophomore effort. I think this was their 4th album. They kind of peaked with this album. Countdown to Extinction was probably the best one to follow this, but I haven't really listened to much of their other stuff. And speaking of Metallica, I've got all the good stuff, the 80s and 190s album. So they are the arguably biggest thrash band of all time and one of the biggest metal bands, and obviously probably one of my favourite. So this is their self-titled debut album, Kill 'Em All, which I think most of the stuff on here was written by Dave Mustaine. There's the 4 members right there. James Hetfield, the guitarist and vocalist, the rhythm guitarist at least, Lars Ulrich, the drummer, Cliff Burton, the bassist, and Kirk Hammett, who replaced Dave Mustaine. I don't know if it says who he wrote. So he wrote about like half of the songs on this one. I think this album's definitely probably their weakest of the first 5 albums. It's definitely got some good songs on there. Whiplash is one of my favourites. Four Horsemen, Metal Militia, Jump in the Fire. Not really too hot and Seek and Destroy, at least the original version. I strongly preferred another version of the same song. It's on like the deluxe version of the album. It's called like Not Live at the Donington or something like that. I think that sounds a lot better. On here it sounds kind of scratchy and James Hetfield is too young, and it actually kind of sounds slow. It sounds a lot faster on the other one. But then the following year they released their sophomore effort, Ride the Lightning, which is in my opinion their best album and probably top 3 albums of all time for me. Top to bottom, this track list is just phenomenal. Fight Fire with Fire is an incredible opener. The title track is iconic. For Whom the Bell Tolls was the first song of theirs I ever heard, and probably the one that really got me into them. Fade to Black is like top 3 songs for me from them. Trapped Under Ice is a fun little halfway point one. Escape, the band hates, but I love it. Creeping Death is another one of their best ones. And Call of Cthulhu is an incredible instrumental. I'm a big fan of their instrumentals. This is just such a good album. However, the fan favourite is Master of Puppets, 1986, which is also the final album to feature bassist Cliff Burton before his tragic passing in a bus accident the same year. Obviously, Battery, the title track, Thing That Should Not Be, Welcome Home Sanitarium, Disposable Heroes, Orion, Damage Inc. Just all of the songs are phenomenal. Leopard Messiah is probably the only one I really think of that I'm just not too hot on. This is probably the second best album, obviously as famous as it should be. And then in 1988 they released the Baseless and Justice for All, which I do quite enjoy. Almost has a more unique proggy elements to it. A lot of the songs are like almost 10 minutes, like the title track, and The Livers Die, which is a instrumental tribute track to Cliff Burton. Dyer's Eve is a really good fast one. The Blackened is the opening, which is one of their best songs, and One, which is probably my favourite Metallica song. Really good stuff on this album, and it's definitely not their last good album. They still make good music, I'd say. And then there's the Black Album, which is where a lot of fans would say they sold out. Which, yeah, it's definitely not as thrashy as their older stuff, but I still think it's a very solid album. There's got some really good songs on here. Enter Sandman is the big one. I don't care if it's overplayed, it's iconic for a reason. Sad But True is one of their best songs, and I honestly don't know why people think that's not as heavy as some of their older stuff. Holier Than Now is a good one. Unforgiven is one of their best, more ballad type songs. Don't Tread on Me, Wherever I May Roam, that intro is so good. Nothing Else Matters is another really big one. Of Wolf and Man is one of their best ones. God That Failed is super underrated, and My Friend in Misery is amazing. Struggle Within is one I don't really remember much of. And then they did Load and Reload, which I find quite underrated, but it's definitely weaker than all of these albums. Saint Anger was as terrible as everyone says it is. Death Magnetic was pretty good. Hardwired was fine, and 72 Seasons was fine. Obviously their older stuff is their best stuff, but to say that to just write everything post 1988 off is kind of dumb. Next up, what used to be my favourite band, Motley Crue. Now this is a band who I do personally think did fall off after the 80s. So to start off, this is their 1981 debut, Too Fast for Love. I've probably listened to this album more times than I can count. Let's see, Love Wire is one of their best songs. Come On and Dance. Take Me to the Top, title track, On With The Show. The lineup has stayed almost exactly the same, only one thing has really changed as of right now. There's the singer Vince Neil, that is drummer Tommy Lee, bassist Nikki Sixx, and guitarist Mick Mars, who has since left the band. He didn't leave, he was fired because he couldn't play properly, despite the fact that literally none of them actually play. If you don't listen to these guys and don't really know anything about them, look up Vince Neil's singing. Right as of now is absolutely terrible. I saw them live a few months ago, Def Leppard, and Vince Neil cannot sing. He cannot remember the words at all, but he sounds perfectly fine on these albums, which released 40 plus years ago. Shout at the Devil, which was 1983, and is probably their best work. So there's all four of them there. I think Mick Mars is actually significantly older than the rest of them, which is probably pretty obvious if you look at this picture of them. And I think it's like back problems, and they kicked him out of the band. This is the original album cover, but for controversial reasons, they changed it to this. Probably one of the most well-known pictures of the band. This really is just super iconic 80s music. One of the best albums from the 80s in my opinion. Obviously the title track is incredibly fun and catchy and iconic. Looks That Kill is one of their best songs. Helter Skelter is a great cover. Red Hot, Too Young to Fall in Love, Knocking Dead Kid, Danger. It's just probably their best album. And then their most underrated album, Theatre of Pain, which Vince Neil himself has said is terrible outside of like 2 songs, which is not true. I think this is amidst their best work. It's probably not even their worst album. Good album, good picture of them. City Boy Blues is a good song. The Smoking in the Boys Room is one of the quote-unquote good ones, which it is one of the better ones. Louder Than Hell is a good one. Keep Your Eye on the Money. Home Sweet Home is one of the big ones. One of their best songs, easily. That intro is iconic. Tonight is good. Save Our Souls. Fight for Your Rights is a good closer. Yeah, definitely super underrated. And then Girls, 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 which is also pretty underrated. It's kind of got a bit more of a bluesy feel to it. Compared to their other albums. Wild Side, the title track, Dancing on Glass, especially have these like kind of more country town feel to them almost. All in the Name of is kind of weird but really fun. All in the Name, that's what I just said. Something for Nothing is good. You're All I Need is a good closer, because then there's just a random live cover of Jailhouse Rock after it, which is just kind of really weird and really breaks the pace of the album. And this is probably my least favourite of their 80s albums, and it's also their most popular. The hits on this album really work, but then there's also some of their more forgettable songs from the 80s. Obviously, title track is amazing. Kickstart My Heart, Same Old Situation, and Don't Go Away Mad, and Time for Change. Those are all really good songs. But then you've got stuff like Slice of Your Pie, Rattlesnake Shake, Sticky Sweet, and She Goes Down, which are just kind of forgettable. And yeah, this is probably my least listened to of the 80s albums. I love the cover though. It's probably my favourite of theirs. Obviously, this is probably their last really good album. After this, Vince Neil left the band. and the singer that replaced him was pretty fine, but I don't think it really captures the sound of their original albums. And then they were planning on making another album with that singer, but then he left and then got replaced with Vince Neil, and it's kind of got this weird like juxtaposing. It's like Vince Neil's style but mixed with the other guy. It's like darker lyrics. It doesn't fit at all. And then they made Saints of Los Angeles, which was their like last album, which has also got some pretty good moments on it, but overall is kind of forgettable. Yeah, they used to be like my all-time favourite band. And then we've got Nirvana, the ultimate grunge band. Obviously this was their big breakthrough album, their sophomore effort, Nevermind. Got a American dollar bill in there. This was the first CD I ever got. Obviously it's one of the best albums of all time for good reason, probably top 5 for me. Smells Like Teen Spirit is as famous as it is for a good reason. In Bloom, Come As You Are, Lithium, Territorial Pissings, Train You is amazing. Lounge Act, On a Plane, Something in the Way. Such a solid album, and really one that everyone should listen to at least once. In Utero, the other one I've got, which is almost completely different to Nevermind, but you can definitely tell it's made by the same guys. It's definitely got a lot more darker elements to it. However, this one was definitely a lot more accessible, I guess. Serve the Servants is a great opener. Scentless Apprentice is one of the more unique ones. Heart Shaped Box was the big one. Rate Me is probably my favourite of their songs. Francis Farmer's good. Dumb is a good one. Tourette's and All Apologies. So yeah, that's Nirvana for you. I don't really have much else to say. Okay, from the O, we've got Oasis. Their album, What's the Story? Morning Glory. Now, you may be wondering, where's the front cover? That's because I bought this off eBay, like I do most of my CDs. But it was like really cheap, and the case just snapped off basically. I have another CD that I think has the same thing, but it hasn't come off yet. I'll get to that when I get to it. Yeah, it came off, and I initially kept the piece of paper that comes with it, but that I lost it. So I've just got this. And yeah, this is definitely one of my favourite albums of all time. This is probably the best Oasis album. Obviously Hello is a great opener. Roll With It's good. Wonderwall, while being incredibly overplayed, is still classic. Don't Look Back in Anger, which is probably my favourite song from them. Some Might Say is good. She's Electric. The title track's great. And obviously Champagne Sippin' Over, which actually might be my favourite one. Got nothing else to add really. It's a pretty good band. A pretty good album. Another grunge band, Pearl Jam. They're a Seattle grunge band like Nirvana and Soundgarden, and the other grunge band I can't think, Alice in Chains. This is the same problem as my Woodface CD where I ordered it. That is a bright light. And it got pushed down and it doesn't hold the disc properly. This is an absolutely incredible debut. 10, one of the best albums of all time. It unfolds into this poster, which is pretty neat. Lots of good songs on this album, of course. Absolutely classic. Once is the opener, I believe. Yeah, that one's really good. Even Flow's the big one. Alive is the big one. Even Flow got kind of famous on TikTok last year. Alive is the really big one. Black's another good one. That's one of my favourites. Jeremy, Deep and Release are really good ones. Just an overall incredibly tight and solid album. That this is their sophomore effort versus, which is also a really weird, cheap version, which claims it's the self-titled album on the spine, which is Pearl Jam. They do have a self-titled album, and it's not this one. It came out in like 2006 or something. Yeah, this came out in 1993, I think. Yeah, 1993, right there, if you can see it. This one's kind of more of what the first album was, but, you know, done, I guess, slightly weaker from my memory. It's been a while since I've listened to it. It's been a while since I've listened to any Pearl Jam, really. I'm going to try and see them later at the end of this year playing with the Pixies. I haven't been able to get tickets yet. I wasn't able to get them in their initial one, but I might get the resold ones. Go is a great opener. Animal, Daughter, Dissident, Review Mirror, Elderly Woman Behind the Counter in a Small Town, which is probably my favourite song from them. Yeah, then really just a solid album. And then 1994's Vitalogy, which I think just came out a few months after Kurt Cobain's death. And I think that kind of affected the process of making the album. It's got this really cool book with it. It's kind of cool. I only listened to this album once. It was a while ago. I can't really remember any of my thoughts on it, but I definitely need to give it another listen. I don't know why I haven't listened to it again since. So I don't really remember any of the songs from it. I think I remember liking Last Exit and Nothing Man. Bugs was, I remember, being really weird. Better Man, I remember liking. That one with a really long title, I remember liking. Not much else to say. I remember liking it a lot though. And from we've got Rage Against the Machine with their self-titled album. Iconic hard rock, rap, early 90s sound to them. This is easily their best album. So many classic hits on this one. Some of the most famous rock songs of all time. Bomb Track is an incredible opener. Killing in the Name is one of the biggest rock songs of all time. Take the Power Back's good. Settle for Nothing. Bullet in the Head. Not Your Enemy. Wake Up, which was actually used at the end of The Matrix, which came out 7 years after this album was released. Fistful of Steel. Township Rebellion, Freedom. You know it's a good album when I end up listening to the entire track list. Really solid album, really good band. And then we've got the Red Hot Chili Peppers, which I've got 4 albums for. Now they were a band formed in the early 80s, but never really got that much success from doing this early kind of funk rock hybrid. And then they had I think the drummer died of an overdose, and then the guitarist left because of personal issues, and they got a new drummer, a new guitarist, which ended up being Chad Smith and John Frusciante, and then lead singer Anthony Kiedis, Flea on bass, one of the most iconic band lineups of all time, and it's remained relatively consistent outside of John Frusciante always leaving and coming back and leaving and coming back from the band. John Frusciante and Chad Smith joined in 1989, and they released the album Mother's Milk, which is really, really good and really underrated. And then this one is 1991's Blood Sugar Sex Magic, which is probably their breakthrough album. It's got some of their biggest songs on it, like Give It Away and Under the Bridge, obviously. But like the title track, Breaking the Girl, Suck My Kiss, Naked in the Rain, Power of Equality, If You Have to Ask. Just lots of really good songs in here. Only main criticism of it is that it's really too long, and it doesn't need to be as long as it is. There are definitely some songs that you can cut out and I feel wouldn't really detriment to the overall quality of the album. Especially because it's like 17 tracks and it's like almost an hour long. Mellowship, Slinky in B major, Apache Rose Peacock, the greeting song, like no one really, I don't think, listens to like those ones. I feel like it could have made the experience overall just a lot better and more tighter. And then after this, John Frusciante ended up not enjoying the fame that he was getting, and he left the band, and they released another album called Red Hot Minute in 1995. People weren't as too hot on that one, and then Frusciante came back, and they did arguably their biggest album, Californication, from 1999, which is probably my favourite album from them. It definitely still has some of the problems from Blood Sugar Sex Magik, however, not as prominent. You can definitely tell this is like a really cheap copy of the album because there is literally no booklet, and the CD disc looks like this. However, I don't care, because as long as I get to listen to the music. The first like 6 tracks on this album, just back to back, are some of their best songs. Around the World, Parallel Universe, Scar Tissue, Other Side, Get On Top, Californication. All those songs are just like a 6-track masterpiece. Honestly, if that was an EP, that could probably be renowned as like the greatest EPs of all time. But still, there are some amazing songs on here. Easily, Porcelain, I Like Dirt, Savior, Road Trippin'. But yeah, absolutely incredible album. And then this was their 2002 album, By the Way, which I don't really think, I can't really remember my thoughts on this one. I also only listened to it really one time. I just bought it because it was like cheap, I guess. The opening title track's good. The Zephyr song is good. Can't Stop's one of their biggest songs. There's like a Spanish song on here. This is also like that Oasis album I was talking about earlier. The CD case is really cheap. It's hard to get out, and it's also incredibly easy to break. Yeah. And then this was their big double album, Stadium Arcadium, which is like a 2-hour album. I've only listened to the first half at the moment, as of right now. But the first half's pretty good. Danny California's good. Snow, title track, Humpty Bump. Yeah. Little booklet, it fits with either sides. Not a bad album from what I've listened to, but yeah, definitely one of my favourite bands. Yeah. More new metal, Slipknot, one of the better bands to come out of new metal, primarily from their early work. So this is their self-titled album, released in 1999, debut. Honestly, one of the greatest debuts ever. Just absolutely phenomenal. So much raw energy encapsulated in this album. Back to back, so many good songs. I mean, this is easily their best work. I don't really think much. They've come close, but there's no denying how great and how much of an impact. And there's like 9 members. I can't name like all of them. Sick is an incredible opener. What a way to open your discography. Eyeless is really good. Wait and Bleed, Surfacing, Spit It Out, Liberate, Prosthetics, Scissors is a good closer. So absolutely incredible album. And then in 2001 they made their sophomore effort, Iowa, which is kind of like more like the self-titled, but just so much angrier. And I think out of the first 3 albums, this is my least favourite. Not a detriment to the quality of all the album, it's still fantastic. It's basically like picking your favourite kids. Alright. Let's see. Opener's good. Disaster Piece. The Heretic Anthem. Left Behind is probably my favourite one from here. And there's like a 15-minute title track. Which probably doesn't need to be as long as it is. It's all shiny as well. And then the booklet's this like cool thing. It's like see-through paper or whatever. It's all the numbers. And then after this album, they took a bit of a hiatus for like 3 years. And they didn't come back till their 2004 album, Volume 3, The Subliminal Versions, which is this one. Which I prefer. It's kind of like a more softer version of the first album. This one's really heavy and this one's kind of more softer. And the first one's kind of like the perfect middle ground. But I do think this is better than Iowa in my opinion. I find myself coming back to it a lot more. Lots of good songs on this one. Blister Exists. Duality is their like biggest song, and it's for good reason. Vermilion and Vermilion Part 2, almost the same song, but also really nicely juxtapose each other. Post the Maggots, Before I Forget. Such a great album, such a great band. And then after this, they kind of felt a bit formulaic, but no denying how great these first 3 albums were. Here's another top 3 bands for me. I've got almost all of their albums except one. System of a Down. I've got all except the self-titled debut. So let's talk about System of a Down. Starting off with Toxicity, their second album. Easily my favourite album of all time. It just, the sheer perfectness that comes out of this album, it's just incredible. Like track to track, I wouldn't take out any of the tracks. Like it just all blends together perfectly to create such a fun experience, and I find myself coming back to it time and time again. Obviously, Prison Song is an incredible opener. Needles is a good one. Deer Dance, Jet Pilot, X, Chop Suey is like their biggest one. Bounce, Poco 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 Bounce, Forest, Atwa, Science, Shimmy, Toxicity, which is my favourite song from them, Psycho, and then Aerials. These are all the 4 members. Serge Tankian on vocals, Darren Larkin on the guitar, Shabo Ojijin? I can't remember how you pronounce it. And then John Dollyman, I think that's how you pronounce it, he's the drummer. And that's Shabo's the bassist. Just flat out, easily my favourite album of all time. And then the next year, in 2002, they released Still This Album, which is essentially just a collection of B-sides and outtakes from Toxicity, and is probably their weakest album. But it's still System of a Down. Obviously, Chicken Stew is a good opener. Innovation's good. Boom. Highway Song. Yeah, some good ones in here, but it definitely just kind of feels like Toxicity 1.5. And then they released a like Use Your Illusion type double album, but they released them separately. One in May 2005 and the other in November 2005, I believe. This is Mesmerized, the superior half. This one's got just such a tight compaction of all the songs, back to back. Soldier Side intro is really good, and I kind of wish it was longer. BYOB is one of my favourites. Cigar is a good one, really weird, really wacky, but done so well. Radio Video, This Cocaine Makes Me Feel Like I'm on This Song. Violent Pornography, Questions, Sad Statue, Lost in Hollywood. Yeah, really, really good. And Hypnotize, which is the slightly inferior half to Mesmerize. but still, like, it's barely weaker. It's just, if I had to pick one, Attack, Dreaming, Kill Rock and Roll, title track's one of my favourites. Holy Mountains, Vicinity of Obscenity is a fun one. Lonely Days, kind of overrated, but still really good. And then Soldier Sight's one of their best songs. So one of my favourite bands, such fun and unique. Self-Titled is a really good one. I'd probably rank it just above Stillness album. But yeah. Tool is a progressive metal band with an incredibly annoying fan base. However, I am not like some of the other fans. I'm a bit more of a casual enjoyer of Tool. Undertow is their debut, and it's a pretty good album. I think it's definitely got their beginnings. There's elements that obviously have been done better later, but overall it's not really quite there yet. But their Intolerance is a good opener. Prison Sex is really weird but also really good. Sober's incredible, one of their best songs. Bottom's pretty good. Title track, Swamp Song, Flood. Yeah, so some good stuff on here, but probably their weakest of their classic albums. And then Enema, which was released like 3 years later, and is probably my favourite album from them. It is really, really good. There's no like track list on here. I think it's in here. Stinkfist is the opener, and is probably that was the song that got me into them. Eulogy's a good slower one. H is good. 46 and 2 is one of their best ones. Hooker with the Penis is a good one. Jimmy, the title track's one of their best. It's such an angry sound. It's like it builds up throughout the album, just all the anger, and the title track's the payoff. And the Third Eye kind of slows it down, gives it a nice, more epilogue type feel. Lateralis, which is one of the coolest CD releases I've ever seen. The disc is a buzzsaw, and then the booklet is this like layered thing of this guy. It's really cool. However, this is like their most popular album. Personally, I do prefer Enema. However, there's some really strong parts on this album. I do think it is quite flawed. I think it's a bit too slow for my liking. I think Enema kind of has this sense that it's always building and building until it pays off with one of their best tracks, and that's what I like so much about it. This one just kind of retains it. Grudge is a good one. I like that one. Schism and Parabola and the title track, I like the ones I really like, but other than that, 10,000 Days was their last album released before they made like a 15-year hiatus, and I haven't listened to their most recent album, which is 2019's Fear Inoculum. This one's not as good as Lateralis or Enema, but I probably prefer it over Undertow. Some good songs on here. I'm trying to find the track list. There it is. Vicarious is good. It's got these bloody goals, and then you look through them and then you see 10,000 Days, Part 1 and Part 2. The Pot is probably my favourite song from them. Rosetta Stone, good songs on here. Not a huge Tool fan, but when they're good, they are really good. And then the final band that I have to talk about is Van Halen. The David Lee Roth era, which is their best era in my opinion. However, I don't just think everything else sucks because it doesn't have David Lee Roth on it. The Self-Titled, best album, one of the best albums of all time. So many good songs. Running with the Devil, great opener. Eruption, really got me. Ain't Talk About Love, back to back. Such good songs. I'm sweating a lot. Van Halen 2 is really good. However, probably my least favourite David Lee Roth album. What songs are on this one? You're No Good, it's good. Dance the Night Away, Somebody Give Me a Doctor, Spanish Fly, DOA. The Wind Children First, pretty underrated, pretty fun. Got a different sound, but I really like it. And The Cradle Will Rock, Everybody Wants Some's good. Radio Delight, Loss of Control, Take Your Whiskey Home, In a Simple Ride. Good. Fair Warning, which is probably their best one outside of the self-titled. Mean Street, good. Dirty Movies, Sinner's Swing is one of my favourites. Unchained is probably my favourite Van Halen song. One Foot Out the Door, Sunday Afternoon in the Park, really good. Dive It Down, pretty underrated. I know it's got too many covers on it, but that's what I kind of like about it. Where All the Good Times Gone is good. Hang 'Em High, Pretty Woman, Little Guitars, Big Bad Bill, Full Bug, great stuff. And 1984, which is their big album, and I don't care if it's overplayed, it's still overplayed for a reason. Jump's good, Panama, Drop Dead Legs, Hot for Teacher, I'll Wait, House of Pain, really good. And that's my entire CD collection as of right now, March 21st. I'll see you next year.